Hey tubers, welcome back for today's adventure. And what I have in front of me here are two carbs. This one, you can see it's the Keihin, and this one, let's try not to lose anything today, is OEM standard. So it's the knockoff, the Chinese knockoff. This carb goes to a Honda 300EX. It's the OEM carb. It's off one of Bill Statton's bike, William Statton. He has a YouTube video, YouTube channel. He sent me this carb. It was one of his spares. So, what's the difference between the two? If you can find a Keihin carb for your bike new, your all-terrain vehicle new, typically it's about 3 times what the China carb would go for. So, this one is one of the better clone carburetors, and it went for about 90 bucks. So you're gonna be, $200 to $300 if you can find a new carb for your Honda 3 or 4 wheeler. Typically used, the Honda 250s, TRX 250s or ATC 250s, typically their carbs used cost about what a China clone carb new would cost. So you typically spend 50 to 75 to 100 bucks depending on what condition a used Keihin carb is, and typically these guys are less than that for that model. I happen to love the what are they called, PZ27s. They're the ones that go on the 200s. Very easy to work on and all that other stuff. But what do you get? What is the difference between these two? And this I find for all the castings. This is the fuel pump, the bottom of the fuel pump. And if you look in here, the metal is much more polished, let me give it a glossy finish. Let's say it's glossy. For this guy, for the clone, the metal is not as finished. It almost has a sandblasted appearance. I'm going to use the word more porous. It has more surface area because of the way it's textured. And I typically find, given the difference, that when I have a bike that I'm not starting regularly, these carbs, the clone carbs, have a tendency to clog up, gel up, if you let them completely dry out, powder up much quicker than the original carbs. I don't know if it's porous and there's actually something in that metal that causes the gasoline to go bad faster, or the increased surface area helps the gasoline separate out, which makes it go bad faster. I'm not quite sure why that porosity makes it makes the gas go bad quicker, but it does. The OEM carbs have a tendency, when sitting, to be able to sit longer, and if you stabilize gas in both of them, it seems that with the OEM carbs, if you stabilize the gas, almost the gasoline seems to last indefinitely, almost forever, whatever forever is for the life of gasoline. On these clone carbs, even with stabilized gas, even with gas that I use seafoam in and everything else, it seems that if they sit more than a year, I have to open them up and clean them out. I think other things you'll find as you go back and forth between the two carbs, dumb little things like this fuel pump diaphragm, the vinyl or whatever this diaphragm is made out of. I think you'll find the OEM carbs, this diaphragm material is a little better. This carb is probably all of 20 years old, if not older, and that black material, that diaphragm material, is still flexible and completely usable, and it's not got the best treatment in the world. It's been, sitting around without gas in it, and it's been hot, it's been cold, it's been everywhere, and it's still very pliable and very usable. The rubber hoses here don't last a lot of them don't last a year, so I'm not believing this particular diaphragm material will be lasting forever. I bought this particular carb, and I bought this specific. This is from a TRX 250X, and I bought it for the TRX 250. The difference is a cable choke. This one has the slidey bar, and the other one has a cable choke. I want to put a non-cable choke on that quad, but as I look at these two, they quite honestly are exactly the same, from the tail to the intake, or actually from the intake to the tail. As a matter of fact, most of these pieces are, if you put them on right, interchangeable. Everything is in exactly the right place. What do I suggest? I must admit that is a tough one. For all the 200s, the ATC 200s, when I'm buying those clone carbs for somewhere around $15 each, quite honestly, for $15, it's quicker to pop a new carb on there than go through a full rebuild. I do rebuild the Keihin carbs. If I open them up and they're not too bad, I'll give them a quick rebuild. But if I open them up and they're like super nasty, with the ATC 200s, I have a tendency to pop a $15 carb on there. And even a year later, if it's acting up again and I have another $15 carb on the shelf, I have a tendency to just reach up and grab it and pop that on there because it's much quicker. But if you're starting to throw around $90 to $100 per carb, you really can't be just throwing them up on the shelf. The cheaper version of this, the one with the cable choke, is about $60. So, $15 doesn't hurt too bad. $60 starts to hurt, and you really need to put some time and effort into the carb before you give up on it. One of the things to consider, though, sometimes your OEM carb might need some love and attention. Perhaps you have a leaky bowl, or you need the little diaphragm piece or the spring. Perhaps you get an incomplete carb. Well, if you happen to have a few of those, and you could get one of these that you can mix and match and swap parts around, maybe if you have 3 of these carbs, and you buy one clone carb, and you could get out of the $90 you spend on the one clone carb, 2 of these OEM carbs back to life, that's not a bad thing at all. I mean, everything, see the way all of this goes, they really are quite very much the same. They did the throttle a little different, setting the idle. This one has the old cable, perhaps a little more convenient than the OEM. So, kind of a wishy-washy conclusion. What do? Well, what could you afford? For the more expensive carbs, my lean is to rebuild them if possible. In the case of my TRX 250 outside, the carb on there is pretty messed up. The throttle is messed up on it. The choke is messed up on it. The cable that goes up to the carb for the choke is messed up on it. Between the carb and the handlebars, kind of messed up on it. So I wanted to upgrade to the 250X type carburetor on there. See if I can put that on there and do a little better. So I did that deliberately. It did, by the way, and that one did not come with the OEM carb. That came with another clone carb of dubious lineage. There you go, dubious lineage. All right, so I think that about covers it for this video, folks. I want to thank you all for watching and commenting and subscribing. Please remember to keep your feet down, your heads up, and get out and enjoy each and every day. Bye now, folks.